Godzilla has evolved so many times in the Monsterverse. I mean, he went from Godzilla 2014 all the way to Evolved Godzilla, but is he going to evolve more in the new Godzilla x Kong 2 movie? Well, let's find out.
Kong, the new empire, we witnessed Godzilla's
Goji Sender is gonna tell us everything, man.
State. But will the G-Man be able to grow past this? Will he?
I think he will evolve more if he gets more radiation.
And most importantly, can he get even more powerful?
Of course he can.
Today on Goji Center,
he's going to become Black Godzilla. Then we're gonna get red.
Understanding the how and why he had to shift to the next stage of evolution.
I wish to get Thermo again, man.
Titan Skar King of all time. Subscribe to not miss any more episodes.
Yeah, guys, hit that subscribe button and check out Goji Center in the description.
Coming up, the evolution of Titan Skar King Explained. In this episode, we'll cover all of Godzilla's different forms, beginning when we saw him in live action in Apple TV's Monarch Legacy of Monsters. Here, we are taken back in time, prior to the events that happened in 2014, back to the year 1954 in Bikini Atoll during the Castle Bravo nuclear tests. These so-called tests were actually a way to lure Godzilla into a trap. What was supposed to be the end of the last surviving Gojira specimen would actually mark the beginning of Godzilla's outstanding evolutionary journey. Here, Godzilla seems very lean, almost young, and nowhere near.
I wonder how old Godzilla is, man. Is he like 1,000 years old?
His dorsal plates are straighter, pointy, and jagged in appearance. It's
Look at
unclear how
Godzilla,
tall
man.
he was during this time
His head is
period,
much bigger
likely
too.
around the 354-foot range, similar to his height in 2014. Before we move ahead to this era, we must first ask the question, was Godzilla always this skinny prior to this moment?
I think he was skinnier.
In appearance in the millions of years he's been roaming the planet? Well, probably not. If there's something we do know about the G-Man is that he's been around not only for a very long time, but during many global crises and Titan wars. That's right, a Godzilla like this would have probably not fared too well against other Titans like Ghidorah or a whole army of great apes. Evidence to support the theory.
Yeah, I think Godzilla in 1954 is gonna get destroyed by the ape army.
Showing Godzilla himself going up against other kaijus like a great ape and Ghidorah. Note how in these depictions, Godzilla isn't the skinny lizard we see in 1954.
Wait, so he lost weight?
Bit more nourished, to say the least. So what happened? Just like a bodybuilder who takes a year off from working out, or a bear who wakes up after hibernation, there are definitely some consequences of being inactive for a long time. These repercussions come in the form of lost body mass. Maybe he wasn't as tall back then, but likely more bulky. But not enough to take on a certain member of the great ape species.
Skar King.
Yeah, if you didn't know, there's actually a record of a hard L handed to Godzilla.
Okay,
by
no.
Known as the Rival, this dude was actually strong enough to kick Godzilla out of his house.
Nah, guys, this is fake news, bro.
The G-Man wasn't 2024 big, but probably similar to something like 2014.
But Godzilla 2024 is going to destroy that guy.
During the Great Titan War, resorted to using geological means to deal with these apes. In GXK, we learned that instead of taking on Skar King and his army of apes in hand-to-hand combat, he instead simply trapped them in a giant cave, leaving them at the mercy of Shimo. This ended up backfiring, but the point is that Godzilla was nowhere near as big and strong as he was during the years 2015 and beyond. But after these events and a long nap, Godzilla probably woke up around 1954 a lot skinnier. This nuke would only end up helping Godzilla get stronger, bringing us to the year 2014. At this point, after 60 years, Godzilla would have gained a little more mass, but barely any height. His spines, which are a key indicator of his maturity, were still more or less the same as his form in 1954. The real change between this form and the previous was the amount of mass he carried around. How is it possible that this Titan was able to bulk up? Radiation. At this point, it's really important to note that radiation is everything for Gojiras, with the lack of it only spelling death to those unfortunate to be deprived from it.
Yeah, it's Godzilla that feeds on radiation, man.
Another Gojira specimen with similar proportions to Godzilla in 2014, but lost a fight against the Muto Prime and served as an incubator for the two
Dagon,
Mutos
bro,
seen in
Dagon.
2014.
I miss Dagon, man.
Godzilla would now have the acquired mass necessary to avenge his relative thanks to the atomic bomb. This was a brave new world Godzilla was living in now. Radiation was now easier to acquire and recharging times were exponentially less than before. Instead of taking a nap that could last years next to a radioactive source, Godzilla would just rely on staying near or
He
consuming
just get
the
nuked
energy
by like a
from
human.
any nuclear source. Here, Godzilla was able to take on 2 Mutos and tank a great amount of damage before defeating them. But at what point would Godzilla end up switching up to the form we see him in King of the Monsters? Well, shortly after the
When he
events of
fights Muto
2014,
Prime, right?
or known as G-Day, Godzilla ended up having a confrontation with the Muto Prime, aka the parent of these 2 Mutos. After a few skirmishes, their last confrontation ended up costing the G-Man his dorsal plates, shattered by the Muto's sonic roar. Fortunately though, Godzilla was able to grow these back, but they returned looking different. Godzilla had
I wonder if
leveled up to the
Godzilla
next
destroys
stage
his
in
dorsal plates again,
evolution.
will he regrow?
That's right, the
I mean, look
next
at my dorsal
evolutionary
plates.
stage featured a new shape for his dorsal plates. This shape, though, was not exclusive to this Godzilla. This shape marked the next stage in Gojira evolution. We know this because there was another Gojira that also reached these stages. One killed by the great apes and whose dorsal plates were used to create the axes in Kong's throne room. This is our indicator that there were in fact more Gojiras that reached this evolutionary stage back in the day, and Godzilla had just entered this stage. Shortly after, he retreated to Algeria in the Sahara Desert, where the G-Man buried himself for a nap. Here is where Godzilla was able to grow his plates back to this new form. But not only that, begin another growth spurt. We'll see how tall Godzilla ended up growing up in 2019, but first we must note that at this rate, Godzilla was already beginning to regain mass again. His more muscular
Why did
arms
Godzilla
capable
go to the
of quickly
desert to
dispatching
sleep?
Titans such as the Ion Dragon, and even though becoming heavier, the G-Man was now able to move faster, his attack maneuvers covering more area in less time, preparing him for what is to come in 2019. At this point in time, Monarch had finally caught up a little bit with the realization that there were a lot more Titans around the world laying dormant, and that Godzilla and Kong weren't the only ones around. One in particular, known as Monster Zero, was the one to look out for. Fortunately, at this point, Godzilla had reached the peak of his next growth spurt, reaching 393 feet in height and gaining more body mass.
He gained like
enough
40
to once
feet
again
of...
fight Titans like Ghidorah.
That's like 10
Except
meters.
This time, Godzilla had unlocked a new evolutionary boundary and was now taller.
Look at the difference.
In
Oh
Godzilla
my,
King of the Monsters,
he's way
during a
taller,
battle
way
at the
bigger.
coast off
Oh.
Isla de Mara, Godzilla and Ghidorah were both caught up by a new man-made weapon known as the Oxygen Destroyer,
No,
which ended up greatly
what is
weakening
that, bro?
Godzilla, almost killing him.
I don't think it would have
And
killed him, to be
wounded,
honest.
Godzilla retreated to the bottom of the sea in a lair he used to call home. Here, the levels of radiation were high, ideal for a very long nap. The problem, though, was that on the top, it would only be a matter of days before Ghidorah completely
Ghidorah
wiped out
in like
life on the
5
surface,
hours nearly
and
wiped out
did not
humanity,
have
man.
much time. So in response, a team was dispatched to blow a nuke in front of Godzilla to jumpstart him again. After a heroic sacrifice by Serizawa to detonate the nuke right in front of Godzilla's face, Godzilla was quickly able to recover, and this operation ended up working a little too well. From here on out, Godzilla would have probably breached levels previously unknown to his kind. Thanks to modern-day nuclear breakthroughs and his ability to harness radiation, Godzilla's body nearly reached an equivalent of a nuclear meltdown. We hear this all the time, but what does this actually mean? A nuclear meltdown, by definition, is when the inside of a nuclear reactor gets so hot that it causes the fuel to melt. This can lead to dangerous situations where harmful radiation might be released, or in Godzilla's case, explode and die. Why did this happen to the G-Man? Well, let's say his body anatomy wasn't quite ready to handle this much energy yet.
Godzilla's radiation's reaching critical mass. 6 minutes until he blows.
There was one temporary solution to this, however. Through some supernatural phenomenon during her death, Mothra was capable of passing down certain biological properties that helped Godzilla regulate this temperature for a longer time, allowing Godzilla to reach near meltdown levels, but also to cool down during thermonuclear pulses.
Godzilla nearly melted
Explaining
himself?
why we see Mothra's wing pattern every time Godzilla expels one of these blasts. These not only served as an adequate weapon to finally kill Ghidorah, but also as an important means to cool down Godzilla. Using 3 powerful pulses, Godzilla was finally able to cool down to more manageable levels. Many confuse this thermonuclear form with a state that Godzilla can reach at will, but no, reaching this state is actually pretty dangerous for the G-Man and those around him.
He nearly killed himself, man.
Sacrifice, Godzilla had gained more mass during his recovery, recharged him with energy, and prepared him for his next task, establishing order around the planet. It would be a few years until we see Godzilla's next evolutionary phase, but shortly after King of the Monsters, Godzilla would find time to properly break in his new improved suit, fighting all sorts of titans on both land and sea, and over time becoming more agile. During the events of the graphic novel Godzilla Dominion, we see Godzilla's upper body strength drastically improve, capable of throwing titans around like ragdolls, swimming faster, and subjugating other kaijus in a short amount of time.
Oh
Even
my.
going as far as seeking a rematch against the great ape that kicked him out of his house.
Now Godzilla was so
ago,
confident, he's like, come here, little monkey.
Barely defeating the
Bro, but how did Tiamat defeat the monkey that nearly killed Godzilla? Okay. Like, that doesn't make sense.
Kong, we witness Godzilla using his upper body strength on Kong, admittedly facing the strongest ape he's ever faced. In this film, we only see a Godzilla who was now used to performing more agile maneuvers. That's as far as his development goes at this point in time. The next stages of evolution will unlock a level that no Titan has ever reached before. 3 years later, after Kong and Godzilla parted ways, Godzilla proved that his fighting skills remained sharp. After easily killing an already charged up Godzilla adopted her strategy of absorbing radiation by performing mini raids on nuclear power plants and absorbing radiation and powering up at alarming speeds. This, however, would bring back a problem that he faced.
Bro, I'm pretty sure that's not good for Godzilla,
his body
man.
at this point in time is not capable of storing this much energy. He had pretty much reached a ceiling that could not be surpassed without getting once again near a nuclear meltdown. This irradiated Godzilla would now glow blue, expelling harmful levels of radiation and heat. In one instance in France, Godzilla once again used a pulse to fend off aircraft that were firing missiles at him. But this time it was more than just a pulse. This, ladies and gents, was an EMP. And this comes straight from the official novelization. In the real world, nuclear explosions can also serve as EMPs as well. An EMP is a burst of electromagnetic radiation that can also occur when a nuclear explosion happens near the Earth's surface or at high altitudes, like 393 feet tall kaiju, for example. These then produce damaging current and voltage surges.
He literally copied what the Mutos did. He's like, nah, you know what? I'm gonna get what the Mutos did, man.
Abilities that Godzilla can wield. But this makes Godzilla realize he needs to solve another problem: energy capacity.
That's why he goes to
kaiju like
Tiamat.
Shimo, the G-Man needed to be able to wield more power safely. The answer would be found in the northmost parts of the planet,
where Tiamat is,
Arctic. In the Monsterverse, the Arctic regions of planet Earth serve as a reservoir housing the largest stockpile of energy in planet Earth, courtesy of the constant bombardment of electromagnetic solar winds. This energy would build up here, taking the form as violet or magenta glowing matter. But Tiamat settled here first. Remember how Tiamat in Godzilla Dominion lost against the G-Man?
Tiamat got destroyed, man, and that
decided to settle here. After Godzilla,
I feel bad. Godzilla kicked her out of her house like twice. He's like, nah, that's my house now.
Leave alive at this point, and that this destroyer kaiju needed to die right here. But Godzilla was first actually after this energy. After dispatching Tiamat in a rather brutal fashion, Godzilla settled in the icy caves that used to house Tiamat. It was here where the G-Man would go through his fastest and most powerful evolution yet. So, what exactly happened here? Upon waking up, Godzilla would immediately be noticeably different.
He's skinny, he's bigger, he's stronger, he's better, he's everything. Oh my.
But also went as far as absorbing some of Tiamat's biological makeup, possibly her DNA. This is reflected by Godzilla's more spiky appearance, thagomizer on its tail, elbow spikes, and leaner build. Especially around
that's me! That's me!
Dorsal plates, again an indicator of his evolutionary stage, were also going to be different. Translucent this time, glowing in the violet magenta coloration as well. But Godzilla's appearance now was not the most important part of this new evolution. It was his new molecular density. Why is this
He's like 20
important?
times more
Molecular
radioactive,
density
right?
basically refers to the amount of molecules that take up a specific area. If an area, for example, is full of atomic energy storing elements, then we can store more power. Now it's all coming together. Godzilla literally evolved to be able to store more radiation, 20 times more.
What did I say,
now,
man?
There's a common misconception that this means 20 times more powerful.
Oh.
There's actually a big difference. Godzilla's new evolution made him capable of storing more energy this time, not energy that's 20 times as powerful.
Oh man, I thought he was 20
Godzilla
times
was
stronger, but I guess he can
certainly
only hold 20
stronger
times
and
more
capable of better
energy.
firepower this time. Being a higher molecular density in this case should suggest that Godzilla would have been heavier. At least he should. This is not confirmed.
I think Godzilla is the same, even though he's skinnier, he's still
Now
100,000
Godzilla won't
tons.
have to worry about going through a nuclear meltdown anymore. He can now contain much more energy. And this time he can actually reach a state similar to a supercharged state at will, producing energy and atomic blasts that can cut through millions of tons of pyramid stone like it was paper, hurling world-ending kaijus like Shimo for very, very long distances, and most notably, ending an entire world-ending event like an ice age with just one blast.
Man,
One may
Godzilla
say, well,
in this
this
new
guy
movie
now
is
too powerful.
he is so
And this
strong,
is
bro.
valid point.
No
At
Titan
this
can
level,
beat
there are
Godzilla,
very
not even
few things that can
Destroyer.
stand up to the G-Man that we know
There's
of
nothing.
right now. So now this begs the question, have we seen the end of Godzilla's evolution? The answer, very likely not. Or how else are these guys gonna keep selling figures and toys? Just
Oh
kidding.
man,
Besides,
I can't wait to see how Godzilla evolves in the new movies, and I can't wait to see what he changes into. But that is going to be the end of this video, and let me know in the comments if you think Godzilla is going to change his appearance again completely like in Godzilla x Kong. But that's going to be the end of this video. I hope you guys like it. Peace.